You're like running the marathon every day. I'm not going to be able to keep working as I work.
Systemise your business.
So we whacked it on the Saturday, and then on the Sunday got my first week's booking.
You need fast pound and slow pound.
If you own a property, you can try any scenario on it. Sometimes I just think it's having the marbles to do it.
Well, thank you so much for coming down to my house. And it's just going to be great to pick your brain about exactly what you've done in property, because you've literally built houses from scratch.
Yep.
You've got serviced accommodation properties that you've rent to rent.
Yep.
You've done buy, refurbish, refinance combined with serviced accommodation on properties. So firstly, congratulations on your success. Why don't you just talk to me a little bit about sort of how you got into property and what was it that got you started?
Well, me and Al have been together for about 12 years, and he's in construction and has been doing building renovations, doing extensions, loft conversions when we met. And so he had his own company, and then we decided we wanted to build our own house together. So we bought a plot of land and built our own house. Once we finished, we sold that on and thought, what should we do with the money?
Yeah.
And decided to go into a bit more into debt to property.
I remember when we first met, we've got a lot of mutual friends as well.
Yep.
So we've got church mutual friends and stuff like that. But when we first met, we really got on well.
Yep.
You told me about your development that you've done. You're in construction, and you know, since then you've really scaled and taken on more creative strategies. When did you decide you wanted to do this as like not as a part-time thing, but go full-time into property and really make a proper career of it?
Well, I think it was last year really was a bit of a turning point when we had our fourth child, and we were like, we need to do something, and we need to get pension.
Change,
We need to, you know, really up our game to start building a future and building our wealth pots, to be able to carry it on and give it over as a legacy to our children.
Yeah,
really.
and what you do is quite physically draining as well, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the reason for getting into property really is I won't be able to sustain what I do for work forever.
Yeah.
Because your body just don't let you do that. You're like running the marathon every day. I'm not going to be able to keep working as I work. So if I can just do it for us direct, I get to see the wealth that I'm creating rather than create it for somebody else. So once the house is finished, I can stand back and I can go and visit that house. I can do whatever I want with the houses. If I'm doing it for somebody else all the time, you don't get that gratification as what you could get.
Yeah, I see a lot of builders that have got they know all about property in terms of the bricks and the mortar.
Yeah.
But they don't know how to make money.
Well, this is why we wanted to come on the course. It's like, I know how to build it. I've got a plot of land. I can do all that, but how am I going to scale it?
Yeah.
And that's why we come straight to your course. It's like, well, come down to yours. And it's good. It's an eye opener for anyone that wants to get going. Like myself.
I think for us, it was kind of like putting some of those jigsaw pieces together.
Yeah.
Like I say, he's got the skills. I'm from like a merchandising background, so I'm good with like finance and numbers and doing things like that. So it was just putting everything together and actually going, this is what you can do with all your skill set.
Yeah.
And so last year when we joined the academy, it was just then about them building on that knowledge and building, like the one thing that I always remember from one of the courses, I think it was I can't remember which one, it was one of the first ones, was that you've got a toolkit. Everything's different. So you've got this, you could do a lease option, you could do a service accommodation, you could do a BRRR. It's like you just need to turn up to somewhere and go, right, which one do I need? But you need to learn how to use every single one of them.
Totally. And that analogy clicks with
love
you
that
guys.
analogy. Yeah.
I say the same with golfer.
Yeah.
If you say to a golfer, what's the best club? What's your favourite club? Well, there isn't. Or for a builder, what's your favourite tool? Depends on what shot I'm taking. Depends on what I'm. So you know, in property, it's the same. You might think, oh, there's a piece of land I could build a house, or there's an existing house I could convert it. I could run it as a BRR. I could do it as a lease option, a service accommodation, a HMO, a joint venture. You've really got to have your full toolkit, and then you can become like a property problem solver. Talk me through your first rent to rent and how that came about.
So my first rent to rent came about last year. I think we signed it in August last year. And it just came back from looking on Rightmove and things like that, and went with the agent, and it happened to be an agent who understood what I was trying to do. Yeah. I said, right, this is what I want, and he's like, okay, that shouldn't be a problem. So he went away to the landlord and was like, okay, she wants to do this. He came back and said, yep, that's not a problem. Then I said, okay, well, I want no deposit and I want 6 weeks rent free. And he was like, he's not going to agree to that. I'm like, just try it, because it was an ex-student house. So he wasn't going to be renting it till the end of September anyway, and this was August. So I was like, just try it, because he's not going to be renting it anyway. And he came back and was like, yes, he's agreed it.
Wow.
So my first rent to rent, I didn't put any money down on it until my I think I ended up paying the first month, but that was just to cover the very first month. It wasn't a deposit; it was the first month's rent.
Wow. And then you rented it out, what, as a HMO or?
Well, that was the initial thought. I was like, okay, this will be a great HMO. It was it's 3-bedroom terrace, but it had two separate rooms downstairs and then a kitchen diner. The research that I'd done looked really good for the numbers, and then I put it on spare room things, and I just wasn't getting anything back. And then actually it was Al was like, why don't you try it as service accommodation? Because we'd started learning about things. I hadn't been on the service accommodation course yet, but we were like, okay, let's try it. So we whacked it on the Saturday, and then on the Sunday got my first week's booking.
Interesting that it wasn't working as a HMO as well.
I think sometimes it's a little bit of the location. That was a bit further away from any unis or anything that house was. It was in the city centre, weren't it?
Yeah, and the other thing is...
But I think it would work as a HMO or service accommodation. It's a perfect location,
The only
house.
problem, the feedback that I got was that it only had one bathroom.
Yeah.
And because we were still in a bit of COVID times, back last summer, people were still a little bit hesitant
That's
of
understandable.
having one bathroom.
But it goes back to having the toolbox.
Yeah.
Because of the situation and COVID, and it was a bit slow as a HMO, so bang, you put it as
service accommodation, and instantly,
And you've got to know about service accommodation because you've got all the complexities of
it's not a 5-minute operation just to set up. You've got to go and do the work.
It's not just a case of putting it on booking.com, and no, you've got to have cleaners, you've got to have the linen, the key safes, you've got to have all the automated emails, know how to take the payments, get registered on Stripe. It's a process, it's a business.
It is, and because I hadn't done any of the training as well, so it was quite a learning curve for me, and I used to do all the cleaning as well when we first set it up.
Yeah, we used to go there with kids.
No. So I did about 50 covers, 50 changeovers. I think I added up at one point. But I thought it was quite good because I learned how I wanted it, how I wanted it set up, and I knew that when I did get my cleaners in place, that I could tell them, this is how I want it, this is how long it's going to take you.
Yeah, once you've put the stopwatch to it yourself, you know how long jobs should take.
It's about always replacing yourself, isn't it? Do it yourself to begin with, but then quickly replace yourself.
Yes, I managed to do that, replace myself last year. No, actually, it was beginning of this year. I was kind of forced to do it because I dislocated my kneecap, so I couldn't actually do anything for a while. So I was quickly on the phone trying to find cleaners.
That was God's way of saying, systemize your business.
Yes.
If you don't systemize it, you'll break your ankle and be forced to do it.
Yeah,
totally. I was like to Hannah, I'm not going to go there every weekend and clean this house. It's not happening. I'm not.
Yeah.
Well, we ain't got time for that because you need to use your skills where they're best suited.
Yeah.
And ours weren't cleaning the house. Ours is finding the houses, doing what we need to do.
What are the advantages? Because it's interesting that you went from building a house and making a bunch of profit as a developer to then doing rent to rent, because rent to rent is seen as oft by many people a strategy that people do when they've got no money, they've got no experience. It's kind of a way of getting your foot in the door to property, but you were already in property.
Yep.
So what made you choose rent to rent?
Well, I quite like the whole service accommodation thing. I quite like the hospitality side of it.
Yeah.
And also we wanted it for cash flow.
Right.
So the idea was that we start replacing our cash flow with something that was a little bit more passive, to start freeing up our time.
That makes a lot of sense because you need, as you always hear me say, you need fast pound and slow pound, and property development and even BRR. You've done it takes forever.
Yeah.
Just to get the keys in your hand takes 6 months. And then you've got the refurb and the refinance. So it's wealth building, it's slow.
Yeah.
But then having rent to rent or deal source, I know you've done a bit of deal sourcing as well. It's fast.
Yeah.
It's quick pound. And if you can have the quick pound coming in now, gives you time to focus on then building your empire and getting rich.
I think that's what it is, because we can use our pot of money when a good deal comes about.
Yeah.
So if there's a good deal, well, we're going to go and get that.
Yeah.
We'll just go and get it. Whereas if we spend all our money on loads of like service accommodation properties that we've invested into, we're not going to have any money left to go and do the development ones, which is where you are going to make the money.
And also with rent to rent, it's a really good way of learning, isn't it? So if you're like your service accommodation property, that first rent to rent that you got, what sort of profit do you make from that?
Just over £1,000
Cool.
a month on
That's
it
great.
now. So we invested quite a bit of money into it. We invested about $3,000 into it. We totally redecorated it.
Made it a nice home.
Made it into a really nice home. Bought more stuff for it because it already had like beds and wardrobes and things. But we, decorated, made it into a really.
At least you got no deposit and free rent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it took us a few months to get that back, and then we had a dip over Christmas because I had issues with booking.com, because again, trying to work it out and work out how to use it, and they'd taken it off the site. So then once we got all that sorted come February, we then started to make them
Consistently see that £1,000 a month coming in.
Yeah.
That's good. And then with the experience from that, you then bought a house.
Yeah.
So then at the end of last year, we bought a house to renovate, and we were umming and ahhing all the way through the renovation, what we're going to do with it. And
well, I think you know what you can, like, you know, once you know property, you can do whatever you want with them at the end of the day. If you own a property, you can try any scenario on it. It doesn't matter what you do with it. As long as you can keep paying the mortgage and you can keep paying the bills, then it doesn't matter whether you put it as service accommodation, you rent it as a buy-to-let, a HMO, you can just change the strategy of what you're doing within that property. And I was very sceptical about putting that one in Coventry, the one that we've renovated.
Although Hannah was very confident.
Yeah.
Because I went around that house,
Yeah.
and even before it had gone live, you were going, it'll work.
It'll be fine.
The house is mint. It's a really nice house, really nice home.
So what are the figures? What did you pay for it?
We paid 171.
171 grand.
Yeah.
And how much of a refurb did it need? Did it need like a
Oh,
lot?
a lot.
A
It's
lot,
structural problems.
And
it
we
needed
put
a lot.
an extension on the back.
Did you get stamp duty relief on it, or was it not that bad?
We're going through at the moment.
You're going to claw it back. So 171 for the purchase.
Yep.
Company or personal?
Company.
So you bought it for 171. How much do you have to spend on it? I know you did a lot of the work yourself.
We spent 60.
A lot of that was trying to work. So a lot of the developments we do, we just ain't got time to be doing all the work on them ourselves. So we'll subcontract out a lot, and then I'll go after work and do 3 or 4 hours. If you want something bad enough, you'll work hard for it.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that. And that's what I'll do. I'll go to sites or wherever I'm working at the time, and I'll then finish the day and go and do 3 or 4 hours in the evenings.
Yeah.
And some of those nights at that house, it was 12 o'clock at night, and I'm in the roof insulating.
How much profit did you make on that deal? What was the uplift?
So basically, we got it remortgaged at 290.
So what's the profit on
About
that?
60.
About 60 grand. That's not bad. And it's the fact that it's your own house.
It's like a new home.
Yeah.
So
it was ripped apart.
And also as well, when you do a buy refurbish refinance, in my opinion, it's better than doing buy to let, because not only obviously can you pull your money out, of course, but also if you do a buy to let, if you buy a cheap house and rent it out, you're going to have problems. Whereas when you do a buy refurbish refinance, you're taking a real duff house and then you're turning it into a mint house.
Yep.
Pulling your money back out. Did you pull out nearly all of your money on that then, did you?
Pretty much, I think it's about 15 grand.
Left about 15 grand in it. So you're basically buying a house for 15 grand.
Yeah.
But now the house is mint.
Yeah.
It's got new roof, and it's extended, new carpets, new kitchen, and you're not going to have the same maintenance issues that you would if you just bought an older house.
And we'll recoup that money in about a year.
Right.
Less than a year.
Are you renting that out of service accommodation now?
Yes.
How's it going? That's what I want to know.
Great.
Go on, talk to me about that one.
July was really great months on both the houses. And I think we made about just over £2 grand profit on the drive.
Wow. What about all the builders and cleaners that said it wouldn't work?
my brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, it's been busy ever since. Yeah,
It's an eye opener, isn't it? What you can achieve if you want to do things.
I mean, that's a
really
full-time salary.
It doesn't get that every single month. So we hit about between 12 and 1,700
Yeah.
on that house.
What's the next one that you've got then going on?
So we've got
That's another BRRR,
one
isn't
in
it?
Wolverhampton area.
Wolverhampton, that's my area. That's a good.
It's only a couple of weeks down.
So what is it? What are you doing with it?
We're just going to do something really similar to the drive, to be honest.
We don't know what we're going to do with the end strategy. We're just going to get it to a nice standard, get it evaluated, and then reassess from there.
Talk to me about finding deals then. Where obviously you've got the skills to do the build. The hard bit about this business is finding the deals and negotiating the property, because a lot of builders, they're really competent, or accountants or property solicitors, they're specialists. So I've got builders that work for me, and they're brilliant. They know all about how to build they can build a house from scratch, but they haven't got the first clue about how to get planning permission, how to find a site, how to negotiate, how to structure a joint venture, nothing, how to work out the end value, nothing.
Sometimes I just think it's having the marbles to do it. Yeah. I really do. I just think it's having the marbles to go out there and do it.
Right.
And that's the key, isn't it? Like, what's the worst that can happen? You lose a little bit of money, you make money.
And with property though, it's not, I don't want to sound flippant, but it's not that risky, because
Is it?
if you buy something and it doesn't work, well, property goes up in value over time.
You've got to play the long game. And if you're not prepared to play the long game, then you can make good money on it, like we're making good money on the serviced accommodation, and that can be good for somebody that wants to get out of the rat race and things like that and have their own independence. It can be really good, and I'd recommend it because it gives you that freedom. But it's not a 5-minute fix to solve, say like you're in your job and you don't like your job. It's not that 5-minute fix. It's long-term investments, long-term gain. Yeah. And that's why, like you were saying there, what makes us find the right deal. Wow, how does anybody know what the right deal is? You've just got to go for it. Unless you've got hundreds of people that you can phone up and say, what's Parliament doing tomorrow? What's going to happen with the markets? You just got to keep going, haven't you? I think that.
And no one really knows 100% anyway. I mean, I've made predictions. Well, very rarely have I actually been wrong. I'm usually pretty right, but the truth is, no one could have ever expected COVID. No one, no. And then suddenly, when COVID came, over 500,000 property sales were paused. Yeah. Airbnb, Booking.com, you weren't allowed to advertise on there. Yeah. How can you predict that? So I think you've got to get educated as best you can, and then you've got to bite the bullet and just go for it, haven't you?
When you've got that education, I think actually the decisions that you're making aren't going to be that bad. Do you know what I mean? It's not like you're coming from being uneducated.
So where do you get your deals from? Are they from agents? Are they from deal sources?
The first house that I did when I was 23, 24, that was we were so-called forever home, but we got too big, we had too many children. So we had to move from there, and that was from an auction. Yeah. And we met the vendor on site, went to go and see him. He didn't want to sell the land to us. We were going to give him 150,000 for it.
And then went to auction, and we thought, oh, actually, we turned up late to the auction.
Yeah, but it was meant to be. Sometimes things are meant to be.
Not
so we went to the auction.
Expecting it to go for some really high figure.
We just wanted to see what would happen. We were really young then. We were just like naive. Let's go and have a look. Let's just go and have a look.
That was 10 years ago, that was.
Yeah.
And then it didn't sell. So we were like,
perfect.
Quick. So I got on the phone to my dad, who's been like our angel investor. Dad, can we have that money, please? Can we borrow that money? And we basically made them lock the doors to the room.
Yeah, they couldn't let anyone in the room because
everyone else was still out there on the phone trying to sort themselves out. I was like, no, we're good to go. Can we do a deal now?
We're going now. We're doing it now.
We got a really good bargain on it.
And then the second one was the flat. That was at the same time as the other land, wasn't it?
Yeah, so we then went to in 2019, we went to another auction and bought a flat and a piece of land at the same time.
Yeah, the auctioneers loved us.
Yeah.
I bet they did. Auction is really good. Yep. We buy a lot from auction as well. But talking about the risk in property, if you don't know what you're doing, I would probably say be careful with an auction because if you don't know how to read a legal pack.
We can't. The second time we didn't read the legal pack. We
didn't. And the flat, that's the prime example really of just rushing in, and we didn't read the legal pack or anything.
Definitely not worth doing that. You do need to do your paperwork.
Oh mate, I read sometimes when I'm reading legal packs before I bid. It's scary what it says.
They do overcomplicate things. They really do. If you was to speak to somebody about what it actually says, it's like why don't you just say it in English, straightforward?
Well, I'll sometimes spend a day, I'll pay a solicitor their hourly rate, 700 quid an hour, and I'll say, I want to spend 10 hours with you. And I'll just pick their brain for 10 hours. That's how I learn.
But the flat that we bought, that wasn't the best, and that was like, well, that's why you need to do your homework. Yeah. It was paying. I think we were making like, I don't know, 20 quid or something a month from it, was it?
No, well, we owned that outright, so we were making like £400 a month on it.
Have you done any deal selling? I know I'm always badgering you about that. Have you done any?
Yeah, so we've dabbled at it and not been that successful.
How many deals have you sold?
None.
So yes. Yeah. To be honest, we've only really actually tried to...
But you've been doing other stuff. You've been doing rent to rents, you've been doing BRRR, service accommodation, you've got 4 kids. Yeah.
I think we're using most of our skill set in the building side of it, like with the developments and the BRRs. We're using that skill set because we sometimes we know that, don't we? Yeah.
What's the end goal? Like over the next sort of 5 years, where do you plan on taking the property business?
We don't want to be working for anyone else. Yeah. We want people working for us.
We both still work for other people, and so we want to be working for ourselves 100%.
Full time, and I think that's a realistic goal.
And that I want that before 5 years. I want that like.
And how much money do you need to be making to the point whereby you feel like you can now quit work and you can quit between the two of you?
About 10 grand.
Yeah, about 10 grand. Yeah.
And that's another thing as well, because I know I said to you I really want to interview because you're making thousands of pounds a month. Yeah. You've made a lot of money in property, and you were like, well, we're not quite out of our jobs yet though. But I was thinking, well, let's do a part 2. Yeah. Because if right now, you're making thousands of pounds a month, you've got all these deals going on, it's incredible. It's Winners Wednesday worthy. And then we can do a follow-up in a year or two. I mean, how much did you make on that development that you did?
The first one we made over 300,000.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It was over a long period and it was a lot of work.
It was a long period, yeah.
But
it was our house.
It was our family home.
Yeah.
Well, there was never an intention to stay there forever.
Property's a vehicle, and for some people, they're working in JD Sports, making 1,500 quid a month, and they just want to get 1 or 2 rent-to-rents and get out. And to them, making 2 grand a month passive income is financial freedom.
Yeah.
For you guys, it's not.
No.
You want 10 plus, and you've got different goals, and property can take you wherever you want to go. If people want to get in touch, what's the best way for people to reach out?
Best on my Instagram, @Hannah J Bowden.
Thanks once again for coming down.
No problem, thank you.
Thank you.